What's going on, folks? It's your boy Javier Javier with the Javier Javier Show. Make sure you say it twice. I got a special guest in the building. Me and my boy Robert from the Right to Reason. And I'm gonna introduce Robert and let him tell a little bit about himself.
Hey Javier, thanks for Javier. Thanks for having me on, man.
No problem. I
Happy
was
to
on
be
your
here.
show. I was on your show not too long ago. I've been on your show twice, so
Yeah. Well, you said I had to have you on twice, so
no. I even left off the last podcast with make sure you say it twice.
yeah,
So
that was funny.
so we decided to talk about why atheists tend to be liberal or more liberal. And I thought you would be the perfect guy to talk to about this. So how long have you been an atheist and what got you to that point where
It's hard to say. Like I think I was atheist before I knew I was atheist, you know? 'Cause I started doubting fairly early on, around 15, but I was still a believer up until just around, I don't know, 28, 29, I guess. It's been almost a decade. I was angry for the first good 3-4 years, I guess. I think everybody is. If you grow up in fundamentalism, you're real angry whenever you switch over, because a lot of the stuff that you identified with was, you see as a bad thing. So you're kind of angry at who it turned you into, you know?
Oh yeah.
So yeah, that's why I started doing. I was still mad when I started the podcast. I'm not really mad anymore. I kind of just look at it, people are going to be people, but yeah, it's the Right to Reason podcast. You can find it at righttoreason.com. It's on YouTube, the Right to Reason, all the podcast outlets. It's not it's an audio show. I got some video on there, but I don't do like Javier here does and do a lot of video, just because it takes so much time, man. I know you put a lot of time into your work, I can tell. But yeah, I've been liberal. I turned liberal immediately after becoming atheist.
Oh
But
wow.
I was a very strong conservative. I voted against Obama both times. And
I didn't even know that.
yeah, I was a big fan of Sarah Palin and all sorts of dumbass stuff. Not that I think conservatives are dumb, or I mean, if I had to vote right now, if Rand fucking Paul, if he ran for president right now, I think I'd vote for that man.
Rand Paul?
Even though I'm fairly liberal, but I mean, at least he's solid for what he is. I don't agree with him on most stuff, but I don't want to give my vote in support of the DNC, and I don't want to give my vote in support of Trump, of course. But I just use him as an example, just to say I'm not like stringently liberal, but that's how opposed I am to the current choices, that I'd even vote for a libertarian by choice. But I know he's running as a Republican still.
Yeah, pretty much. So let's backtrack a little bit. So when you became an atheist,
that's not coronavirus, by the way. That's the allergies.
Hey man, we doing this over Skype, so I ain't even worried. So when you became an atheist, was it more you started reading more or hearing other speakers or finding out information that kind of led you out, or you just woke up one day and kind of came to the realization that I never really believed this?
Well, okay, well, neither. I was going to say the latter, but neither. It was more that my conservative values were based on came out of my religious values. Okay. So abortion was a big one for me. And then once I found out, how evolution works and what actually abortion is as a medical practice, I didn't abandon being pro-life because I was more like, oh, women's rights and all that kind of thing. That came later as to what significance that has. But initially it was just, oh, this isn't killing babies. and life isn't, it doesn't hold the same kind of value if it's not intrinsically from God. So the fact that something is a gamete, or a clump of cells, that's an important clump of cells if you think God made it, right? But if it's just a clump of cells, it
Well,
has less significance.
well, I know me and you probably differ on the abortion topic, and we might.
Yeah. I wouldn't try to sidewinder the convo, but that was a major one for me, was abortion.
Yeah, and I get that, because that's why I'm trying to tie
Mm-hmm.
atheism to liberalism, and kind of like, why is it that most atheists become liberal? That's what I'm trying to understand, because me as an atheist, I didn't take that route. I didn't go the liberal route, and I'm trying to understand the difference between me and yourself, or many other atheists that going the liberal route.
I can't comment to the difference between you and I and our political leanings. I can say what the stats say, and once again, I don't think this would apply to you and I, because you're a sharp guy, um, but the stats simply just say um, it's an intelligence thing. The mean IQ of atheists and religious folks is significantly different, as you would expect, and so is the mean IQ between liberal and conservative folks. Um, I think
Yeah,
I think that
when I first started um, in my atheism, well, this was a little while after I've been an atheist, but I was reading studies like that said that atheists tended to have a higher IQ level than religious people.
yeah, and I don't think it's because atheists are smarter than Christians. I don't think it's because liberals are smarter than conservatives. We all know a lot of dumbass liberals and a lot of dumbass atheists. But I think it's just that if you are of a higher IQ level, you would probably tend to lean more toward academia, um, and if you get more educated, then you're going to have a I think more of a chance to start questioning the values that you grow up with, which are typically religious and conservative values. So I think it
Now,
just it just leads to doubting things that might have been established, whereas conservatives may be very intelligent, but they would just be less likely to challenge old ideas. Doesn't make the ideas right or wrong, and doesn't make anybody smarter or dumber. It's just, I think it's just a correlation, not causation kind of thing.
yeah, and I would assume that if you somebody that comes from a religious background and you start questioning what it is that you were taught growing up, it's kind of the same mentality that a liberal has. Like, yo, let's question the authority. Let's not just do something because somebody told me to do it. Let me investigate. Let me look into these things and decide for myself.
Yeah.
Okay, that seems to be more correlated, I guess, in a
I
sense.
mean, but there's the people that grew up without religion and grew up in a liberal area, and that's the purple haired folks screaming at when Trump's elected, and they're
Yeah.
dumbasses too, they never questioned anything. But I think typically, if you grow up in the U.S., you're growing up in some kind of religious conservative background to some extent. And plus, I mean, your parents are going to be more conservative at the time that they have you, right? So I know whenever uh, the wife, was pregnant, or right, I had babies or something, like everything. My values were set up in a more conservative way around that time. I think because you 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 have to think more with your amygdala, at that stage, the stage of being nervous, being careful, watching out, the things that encourage xenophobia, racism, um, fear of the others. Those are evolutionarily beneficial things, and that's kind of how you are when your kids are young. You're more protective, you're more aggressive, you're a little bit more, not aggressive to the kids necessarily, but to others, and you got to protect the wife and protect the children. And these, not necessarily that this is things that you're consciously thinking, but
Yeah.
subconscious drives are pushing you.
It
So I
kicks
think,
in.
yeah. So when you grow up typically in a conservative time in your parents' life. So those are your fundamental values. So yeah, I think questioning that is what is what would lead someone to potentially be liberal. But you know, once again, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't have the Second Amendment. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't have build the wall. That doesn't, you know, none of these things that are necessarily equivalent. I think it's just correlations.
Yeah, and I can say for myself personally, I think that there are things that needs to be conserved, and I think there are things that needs to be changed. And I think this label, conservative, liberal, libertarian, a lot of them I'm noticing are very close to interchangeable in a lot of ways. Because,
Yeah,
yeah, you
it's
know,
weird. It's like there is no way that without propaganda of the media, of the self-identity of cultures, which culture isn't really a good thing. I always like Terence McKenna's quote, "Culture's not your friend." It holds you back in a lot of ways, and these things tell us which side of the line to be on every issue. But it's bullshit that the same people that, you know, are claiming gun rights are the same ones that, you know, are talking about immigration problems, or the same people that have the you know, same opinion on whatever, you know, whatever liberal conservative issue that there might be, you know. um, this is controlled. This is
for yeah,
there's a machine behind this that keeps us separating, you know.
yeah. Let me kind of like jump in real quick. For instance, what makes someone conservative and what makes someone liberal? Like if I agree that marijuana should be legal, if I agree that, you know, people in prison that's locked up for drug charges should be let out, if I agree that we should have certain types of background checks, or, you know, let's say I agree on certain things like that. Not saying I do, I'm just using that as an example. And I also agree that I'm against abortions, or I also agree that I'm pro Second Amendment. At what point do I become conservative? At what point do I become liberal? Because a lot of these things can be held
Right.
by different people.
Yeah, I think that's all just the game that we're being played in as pawns by the powers that be. Because at the end of the day, your libertarian leanings that you have are super liberal on a lot of stuff, mostly on sociological issues, right? But
Yeah.
the things that you tend to lean more conservative on, we could say, are more economics. And somehow that's what's important. Why would that
Yes.
be important? You and I are not part of the aristocracy. But I think the powers that be, not to get conspiratorial or anything, but the powers that be in reference to who has more control over politics and over our culture and media and what we're told to think, or how we're told to identify, those people do care about economics. So that's how they're going to separate us. So you and I probably agree on more than we disagree, but you say you're conservative. You say you lean conservative, and I lean liberal. And I think that division is intentional, and it, in the end, I think it hurts us more than it helps us. Labels can be really helpful because we can save a lot of time. If I tell you I'm an absurdist determinist, well, I just told you a whole lot about myself, like right away. Like you don't have to ask me about much about God or science or any. You pretty much have an idea of where I land philosophically on a lot of stuff. But if I tell you I'm a liberal, you don't know a damn thing about me. You know, because
Right.
that's just, yeah, that's just I think the powers that be separating us, man. I mean, other than that, it's just the brains. We got different brains, right?
And I'm really tempted to just throw it all on tribalism because
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
yeah, it has to just be I'm going with whatever the majority of these people say we stand for.
Yeah.
And sometimes you cross sections with people on the opposite side and you won't even know it because we somehow meet on the battlefield with only the problems we disagree about, but we never come together and have a big discussion about what we do agree about.
Yeah. Coronavirus is a perfect example. There is no reason that this thing should be politicized, but there's money to be had. There's money to be had in keeping shut down, depending on which group you're in, right? There's certainly money to be had in starting back up. So that all of a sudden, I'll find you and I arguing about coronavirus stuff when really it's like, I'm sure we have the exact same feeling about this, except for the media that comes into our heads.
The
what
way
we're
the
hearing
argument is being
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then I hear a really cool argument thing and I start saying, oh, you guys, those protesters are COVIDiots, right? And you say, yeah, but they're standing up for their rights. And I start feeling a little bit of cognitive dissonance because I'm like, dude, why am I going against any form of free speech and protest? That's what I'm about more than anything. But you might feel a little bit of cognitive too, because you're looking at this like, those folks really are wearing face masks, but they're all in a group together saying the virus is fake. That don't make any sense to me either. And it's a fake fight. I think it's a fake fucking fight, man.
I'm seeing that more and more. The more I talk to different people, and the more I get into talking politics and religion and culture, I'm realizing just how much these labels
are bullshit.
Are straight bullshit. And and
Sure.
I'm asking myself, like, where do I go? Well, let's get back to this, because I'm trying to understand why there's an attachment for Christianity and conservatism, whereas atheism and liberalism goes. And it seems like I hear conservatives say, oh, well, those leftists, those godless leftists, but there are people on the left who are Christians.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm an atheist.
Called Catholics. That's the Catholics. They don't really go to heaven.
So, I'm trying to figure out, like, how do I get to the point where I'm not liberal? And one of the issues that I had somebody on, what's his name, show, Stanley, the guy show I was on that you introduced me to.
Did you go on Free Thought Prophets?
His name was Stanley, I believe. Stanley.
That's my name.
Okay.
You talked to Chris Christensen and Dallas Duff, I think, recently.
I did. I was on his show. He said that we should talk. It was like 2 weeks ago.
When you went on David Smalley?
No, not David Smalley. I don't got my phone with me right now. But it was somebody that was in the comments that said, how can you be atheist and conservative? That just doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to explain to him that conservative isn't necessarily married to the Republican Party, as far as a Republican being God's own party. So a lot of people think if you're conservative, you must be Republican, but you could be conservative and vote Democrat. Right. So this ties back into what we were saying about these labels.
And a lot did. A lot of conservatives voted for Obama because he bullshitted them with the hope and change thing. It was a very effective campaign. Was it Emerson Green? Was that whose show you went on? Emerson Green?
Yes.
It was like Walton Pod.
No, it wasn't Emerson. Let me grab my phone real quick.
It's gonna drive you crazy if you don't find it out.
Yeah, definitely will. And you introduced me to this guy, and Sean Yankee.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he's a liberal, but not an atheist.
Yeah, and that's another thing, because when I went into his show, I was thinking, okay, this guy is a liberal. He's a Bernie supporter. I'm like, I assumed he was an atheist, which was bad on my part. And when he told me he was a Christian, I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. And he was even shocked that I didn't like jump on him like, oh, well, how can you believe in God? You know?
Yeah. He that one puzzles him, I think. I've been friends with him for a while. He's good people, but the asshole atheist is so weird to him because he's like, there's good and bad stuff no matter what you believe, and he doesn't. I don't think he sees the harm in it or the lack of logic in it. But what he is used to from your side, from the right side, is because he does a lot of that conspiracy stuff. And those conspiracy motherfuckers with the QAnon and the like weird Trump supporters, not like you where you're like, I like some of the stuff he's doing. I don't trust him, but sometimes he makes me laugh. At least he's oh, I'm sorry. That was my alarm for you. But you know, he's getting things done that I want done. But you don't like, you're not in love with the guy. You don't want to suck his dick, but a lot of these guys do. And those are the weirdo conspiracy folks that he often deals with, and they find out he's liberal and they come at him. It's kind of like atheists will go at Christians. So,
and they come at me. For instance, I put a video out on an atheist group on Facebook, and one of my videos called "God is Dope," and people instantly jumped up there and said, "Oh, you Christian, this, that, and the third." And
they didn't even watch it.
You didn't even watch the video. And a lot of times I get pissed off by that because we're supposed to be the skeptics. And yet I get atheists all the time attack me before they even understand my position or know what my position is. And I started to learn. It doesn't matter if you're on the right or the left. Like you said, there are people on all sides who are just not reasonable or rational when they approach these topics. And it's frustrating because you expect when you call yourself a liberal or you call yourself a conservative, there's a general consensus on what we all stand for. But though it's bullshit, like you said, it's bullshit. You know, some of my greatest friends are people on the left. I'm married to somebody who's a liberal, and
what's that like?
She don't want to get into it. She don't talk about
better things to do with her time than bullshit about that, huh?
Yeah, family members call her and say, Did your husband support Trump?
When I became atheist, my wife was still a Christian. And so we probably went a good, I don't know, year, maybe more, where it was an atheist and Christian marriage.
Oh,
and
wow.
that was actually fun because we love to fight. You know, not like, you know, really getting in it, but we love to debate each other. If there's just the smallest thing we disagree about, we'll spend an hour arguing about it. But this one it took a long time for her to come around. And what finally got her was one day I was talking about the whale's hip bone or something like that. And she says, "The whale's what?" Like, the hip bone. She's like, "Whales don't have hips, Robert." I'm like, "But they got a hip bone." I'm like, "Look it up." And she pulls it up on her phone. She's like, and she like, you could see the change happening in her at that moment in her face, because she actually got angry, not necessarily with me, but she was just like, "Why the fuck do whales have hip bones?" Like, she got upset, you know. And I'm like, evolution. God didn't make it, you know. The whale evolved. And that was what I think was the last straw for her, was just the science of it. But
yeah. So I was thinking that somebody recommended that we vote on issues and not for parties. But every politician comes with a party. It's not like everybody has to stand on their own merits. Yeah, and if we could vote for the issues, I think that would be pretty okay. But the only problem I see that is most people think tribalistic. Most people want to feel like they belong to something. And that's one of the flaws of atheism, because Christians have churches, Muslims have mosques, and Jews have synagogues.
We ain't got shit.
We ain't got nothing. And I understand from an atheist perspective, there's no community there. I mean, there are plenty of people who get together as atheists, but there's nothing to really rally around unless it's anti-religion.
Right.
Really, and that's something that's
like an anti thing, not a for thing. So you gotta rally around something that you're for. I saw this awesome quote. What was it? It was out of I think it was Thus Spake Zarathustra. But it was Nietzsche was saying, you don't. Friends are not made from suffering. Friends are made from things that they mutually enjoy. I'm ruining my paraphrase, but yeah, and that's, atheism's just not. It doesn't offer us any community. I feel bad for my kids. I grew up in the church, like it was a family. There were potlucks, you know. I remember Miss Billy be over there cooking in the kitchen and stuff, and it'd smell good on on a Wednesday night, okay, there's going to be cornbread today. And, it was like being in the kitchen in your home, the kitchen at church. And you see all the white plastic tables set up, in the back room, and, oh, okay, we're about to eat now. And it was a cool experience in a lot of ways. And my kids don't have any of that. They got school, they've got their after school stuff, and they've got us, and they got friends, but
Yeah,
no
it's not the
community.
same. It's
Right.
not the same. And I was wondering this because, man, when I'm by myself, I do a lot of thinking. My mind is like a million places at once, and I just ponder ideas. I like to play with ideas. And I was thinking that I feel a sense from the left that they replace God with the government. I do feel a sense that, like, for instance, if somebody said Donald Trump said this on television about the Lysol or cleaning products, and then I hear people say, well, then people might go out and start doing what the president said to do. And my first reaction is, the president shouldn't be your moral compass. The president shouldn't be the guy you're taking your cues from in life.
Yeah, of course.
But a lot of people treat the government that way. They treat the government as if it's the all be all.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't think the government should be dominating so much space in our lives. And I think with people replace God with the government, not everyone, but I can clearly see that kind of mindset settling in on the left. Now, the right has God. They have Christianity and stuff like that. So they tend to be more, leave me alone, God got me. But the left is more like, the government needs to take care of this because God ain't gonna take care of it.
I never heard that idea before. The right is less likely to be for large government because of their leanings toward religion, and the left would be more toward government. I mean, that would apply historically, like Soviet Union, countries, Mao, like any of those countries where other religions were outlawed. I mean, and
look at China.
Yeah, the Soviet Union, all religion was outlawed. They were killing the pastors and the ministers and the priests, or at least just telling them to get out. But somebody fell off the truck on the way. Nobody noticed. But the that's neat. I don't think you're right, but it would make sense historically.
It's a thought that I'm playing with,
you're working on it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't know.
It just seems. Let me say this, and you can finish your thought. It just seems to me that the government is just, the conversation about the government is so heavy, especially on the left. It's like, if these people are struggling, the government must fix it. If this is wrong, the government must fix it. If we didn't get our way on this issue, the government must fix it. And most people I talk to on the right is more like community. Like, if you need help, go to your church. Go talk to your mother or your father or your sister or uncle, somebody that you know, a friend. Look out for one another. And it's more like thoughts and prayers. But people on the left is more like,
not the government. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not the government. It's more of,
I don't know.
Pray, So
I don't see the God part as much as the it's kind of it goes against evolution in the sense of, I will care about my family, and then maybe people that look like me. That would be racism, right? And then not necessarily that it has to lead to racism. I'm grouping all these together as well. But yeah, typically that's one of the things that lead to racism. But or this tribe, that could be fear of others, nationalism, xenophobia, those kind of things. Once, I think, the farther out you go, the less you give a fuck about your own group, because your group's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. We can. I'm sure you're a nice guy. If you're walking down the street and you see a kid, just sitting there, no shoes on his feet, asking you for food, you're probably going to do everything in your power to help that kid.
Of
But
course.
whenever you see an ad on TV that says millions of children are starving in Africa right now, you flip the channel. I mean, maybe you don't. I do.
A lot
But
of people do. It's the
right, because
natural.
it's so much. It's too big. Where our brains were never made to feel that level of compassion, um, because it's not how we're wired. And I think with liberals, they're looking at the problems and saying we have to have really big solutions to solve this, and there's no structure, there's no organization that has the sufficient amount of power to claim resources from others and then redistribute those resources except the government. So they're going to use the government to fix the problems that wouldn't be intrinsic to us, right? That aren't emotional to us. So conservatives actually donate more than liberals do statistically. But the reason for
See,
that,
to me, it seems like, you know, government do it, and the Christians are more like God, like told me, like I need to do my part.
right? Well, but the reason that I think that is because volunteerism and donations, you get to decide who gets your money, which is the exact same thing as saying you get to decide who doesn't get your money. And the fear of the government collecting taxes and then distributing these things to other people is you don't get to decide. Somebody else is making that decision for you with your money. And I think liberals are more comfortable with that because they have less of those fundamental evolutionary emotions than most conservatives do. And I think a lot of us are probably more liberal than we are conservative. It's just that you're less likely to experience, like we were talking in the beginning, full circle, but you're less likely to experience questioning your upbringing. But there's probably a lot more liberal folks, physically speaking. Their brains are liberal, but they just
See,
never got
and
there.
I think we all inhabit liberalism and conservatism at the core, because I'm pretty sure there are a lot of things that liberals want to conserve about this country. A lot of the principles that
Sure,
founded
sure.
in this country, and we don't want to throw those out. And I
No.
get the. If you ever listen to Jordan Peterson, I know a lot of people. You got
Mhm.
people who either like him or don't. And he was basically saying we need the left in this country and we also need the right. They balance each other out. And I think we all internalize that struggle within us. Should we keep this or should we change this? And we all fight with that on a regular basis. I just think liberals tend to be a little more freer with changing it up and trying new things. And conservatives
Yeah.
more like, I like the way this is. This works for me. Keep it the same, but there's still elements where they like change this, so it just depends on what level or degree you have that you fall on one side or the other.
Yeah. I think the Peterson reference is spot on because where he says it's really only dangerous. It doesn't matter if you're conservative or liberal. It's only dangerous whenever you start becoming authoritarian in that model, because the right's authoritarian model obviously would be fascism. The left's authoritarian model would be
Communism.
communism, right? So, what's a better, because that would, even fascism wouldn't be antonymous to communism because one's more about an economics and what um
Yeah, one is national.
what's the term for it? There's a good term that I think it's a form of authoritarianism that like the Soviet Union and China and all that were, and I know that they were communist, but you give it another term, and words escaping me. But anyway, whatever. But yeah, I think that as soon as liberals start forcing their agenda, or conservatives start forcing their agenda, um, that's where it's a problem, and that's something you got to think about when it comes to which side is more likely to be militaristic. So I mean, you've got the crazy people hitting, not even conservative people, but just anybody that disagrees with them. They're dressed in black and swinging bike locks at people. So there's definitely that violent Antifa side on the left for sure, but typically the right tends to be more militaristic. And you as a libertarian, I would assume that that's something that would probably be a bit of a
Yeah,
conflict for you.
the right form usually takes the form of blood and soil. It's more of race. Race becomes a big factor. It becomes the classism, rich versus poor, which I think the left is the reverse. I think the left puts the working class over the rich. But that can be dangerous also, because next thing you know, you'll have the working class murdering the rich in the streets and then taking over, and they don't know how to run things. And that kind of happened in the Soviet Union, where the working class took over, but famines happened because you messed up the hierarchy so much, because you put the working class so much over the hierarchical structure, to where you don't realize you need these people making these decisions. But this is complicated. This is complicated. Like, we'll be here all
I don't
day.
know, man. I don't know. Like, it's funny. Like, we were just talking about how like conservative and liberal, these are just bullshit titles and stuff. But like, while you're saying those things, I'm feeling angry. Just hear the working class needs these people to make decisions for them. That drives me nuts. Like, I'm not a commie or anything. But I do have a lot of
Well,
I'm a lot more open to utilizing socialism than probably a libertarian would ever want to be.
well, you have to set up a structure in society where those more capable are put in the positions to make the operation run. Like, for instance, you wouldn't want a doctor who never went to school doing your surgery. You would want the guy that's most capable in that position to do your surgery. It's the same thing with running running the company, running the organization, a corporation. You want the most competent people in those positions because that's what they're good at. And if it happens that that position pays so much more, maybe we can get an argument on how much that position is actually worth. But sometimes the market dictates that, because we decide what we value most in society, and that's who we give our money to. And it's just a side effect that that person becomes a multimillionaire. And then we can get into the conversation on how that person chooses to spend their money once they become a millionaire.
Right.
And that may be where the problem is that we need to address.
I think I would agree with you that structure would be representing equality or even equity, if every time someone was born they started from the same spot. But since that's not the case, it's not a pure system. The market doesn't just kind of make it all, and it certainly doesn't mean that the best will get into the positions that they qualify for. I mean, one could argue it's actually the opposite. You move up, and I'm not saying that your theory is wrong. I'm just saying you could make arguments both sides. Where
like nepotism.
You move, nepotism, and also the idea where you keep getting promoted until you're no longer able to get promoted because you're not good. You get promoted into a status of just being shitty enough at your job to not go up, and so you're actually not the best person for that position, because the best person for that position, they're your boss. They're telling you what to do, but they got promoted because they were so good at it. But they can't get out of middle management now because they're really not good at being middle management. So I mean, in some ways, I think it benefits us, in other ways it hinders us.
That's why there's that balance, because, of course, there are a lot of people who are born rich. Their father made millions and millions of dollars. He inherited a company. But also, I can't really be mad at that, because I'm pretty sure you're going to want to leave your kid behind something. It just happened that you didn't become a multi-billionaire or something like that. So we all have the instinct to leave our kids behind what we earned. Half the reason we do what we do is to pass it on to somebody we care about. So there has to be justice on both sides. There has to be look out for the little guy, because you wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the little guy. but also there has to be those who are more capable should have the freedom to pursue what it is that they want, and if they're good at it, we reward them for that behavior.
Mm-hmm. I'm in a class. You have to take a certain amount of psych credits to get a political science degree, and so I saw one. It was called educational psychology. So I'm like, oh, cool, the psychology of learning. What an appropriate thing to take. But it's actually the title's a little misleading. It's really just teaching you how to be a teacher, and a teacher of like junior high, elementary school kids. So I'm like, I don't ever plan on doing that, but I need an elective, so whatever. Graduate next week, by the way. I'm psyched.
Ooh,
yeah.
Congratulations.
But in the class, it's more about like how to keep kids from being mean to each other, how to keep their attention, that kind of thing. I know it sounds like I'm going way off, but it's exactly what you were just saying. Is in this class, it keeps telling you to make sure you're presenting an anti-bully kind of classroom. Bullying's really bad. We shouldn't let kids do that. How to prevent it. How to teach kids why bullying's wrong. And the whole time I'm thinking, there is not one chapter in this book that is saying how to teach kids what to do if they are bullied. And I'm like, what the hell? And to me, that's the conservatism thought of bullying happens. You better know how to handle yourself. Punch him right back in his face, right? and that's conservatism. Liberalism is we shouldn't have a society of bullying. And where liberals go wrong with that is, yeah, but you are in a society where there's bullying. You are. And it's good that you're trying to change things. That's good, but stop pretending like things aren't the way they are. And in the same sense, conservatives get so busy saying, you better know how to work in a society with bullying or in a classroom with bullying. But I think sometimes they forget, this isn't right. Let's change it. And
because not everybody
yeah,
is built that way. Not everybody is going to be able to fight back. What if you're just physically too small? And you shouldn't have to.
There shouldn't be bullying in the classroom. But if there is, and you better know how to handle it yourself. And I think if we could, because that's how you teach your kids, right? Like you tell your kid, don't be a bully, but if a bully messes with you, kick them in the nuts or whatever. You know, we teach our kids right because we know what's right. But when it comes to politics and all this bullshit, we don't try to mix conservatism and liberalism together in our thinking. We don't say, you know what, I really do actually care about some poor ass Mexican family trying to get in this country. I'd be doing the same damn thing. Why don't we use this wall money and put more money into helping these people get in here, right? We don't say that because we're so busy fighting about the wall. And people on the left at the same time, they don't say, you know what, we kind of live in a world with limited resources, and you don't have a country if you don't have borders. So maybe instead of arguing with people that say they want a wall built, we stop saying, oh, you're racist against Mexicans. Maybe we realize they're just being maybe a little hyperbolic about that borderline, but let's try to find some compromising thing. There are gangs coming up out of Mexico, right? And if you let everybody in, that will have an effect, at least with the first, maybe second generation, on our economy. So there are consequences to pretending we don't live in a world with limited resources, but there's also consequences to pretending that we don't have a heart and we don't have empathy. In that middle line, I feel like that's our job to be there. And right now things are so divided. We can't. As a liberal, if I let up just a little bit, you guys are going to run us over, I feel like. And you guys feel like if you let up a little bit, you're going to have a ton of AOCs and Omars in office, just letting all the Mexicans in and trying to tell everybody to run around. And did you see her crying outside that fence, AOC? The photo op? It was so stupid, man. God. The sentiment, I like the sentiment, but it just looks so fake.
I don't understand how she became elected. I can understand it. It's just, I know there are a lot of AOC defenders out there, but I just have look, I'm a reasonable guy. I tend to think I'm reasonable. And there are a lot of people on the left that, I think are decent people and that I think are reasonable and make good policies or has good intentions. I just don't see how AOC is in the position she's in. Every time she opens her mouth, sometimes I just feel like,
she sounds stupid. But that's like, it's, you know what happened though? they got to her, man. They got to her because when she first started, remember, she was standing outside of was it Pelosi's office, like picketing and stuff, and she was telling everybody, I'm going to fight the system. I'm fighting the DNC. I'm a what was it a Justice Democrat. I'm a progressive. I'm not like them. And then all of a sudden she's voting for Biden. She's signing on this recent COVID check that sends more than half the money to the corporations. That's nothing what she ran on, right? I mean, whether you agree with that decision or not, the stimulus or not, that's not what she was about.
And
they got to her.
That's just what I be trying to explain to people is we have to be able to take our different hats off and put different hats on. Because at the end of the day, a lot of these people are politicians. And as soon as we get caught up in this idea that this person has my best interest at heart, you got to remember when the tide shift a little bit, they ain't going to go along with the tide. And that's exactly what happened with Bernie and with AOC.
What do you think happens? What do you think does that? We see that with the presidents. We see that with so much with the senators, with the representatives. They did it with
Trump. Yeah.
But they go in and they seem solid. They seem like they're solid as a rock, straight as an arrow, and then they get there and it's like as if somebody pulls them in a room somewhere and goes, "Hey, you're with us now, or you're dead," or something like that.
Did you?
I'm not on conspiracy. I'm just saying something happens. I don't know if it's the money.
Did you ever
I don't know if they
Black
get info
Mirror?
on you.
Did you ever see Black Mirror?
Oh, I love that show.
If you watched the first episode of Black Mirror when the guy in the pig,
it was gross.
But if you notice, there was this moment in Black Mirror where the lady told him, she said, "Look, if you don't go along with this, we can't guarantee the safety of your family." That was a clear message to him, especially when you got people you love, you got mama, you got uncle, sister. When people can threaten the ones that you care about the most, it's kind of hard to turn down, play ball, So I'm under the impression that there has to be a threat there, or maybe they know something about you that you don't want the world to find out. But you literally would have to have no attachments. You would have to literally be willing to die and willing to put the people that you care about in harm's way to just say, forget it, I'm going through it, what I feel is right, regardless of what you say. And I just think it's hard to live in a world where that type of person exists.
Yeah. And would you even vote for that person? You probably wouldn't trust them because they don't have any attachments. You don't relate to them at all because they're just this android of a human, You
Pretty
wouldn't.
Much.
They wouldn't get in there in the first place if they were that good. That's kind of scary. That's what I want to do. I want to go into politics eventually. After I get my master's, I think I'll start doing something local. But it's scary to me because I think like what level of evil do I have to become to be successful in that kind of business?
Yeah, you just
gotta. Hopefully, at the low level, it's not that bad.
You just got to understand how to take hats off and put different hats on. That's all politics is. It's a balancing act. And sometimes you can't get what you want, but sometimes you can sacrifice this to get something down the road. It's a balancing act. And that's why one of the reasons I like Joe Rogan show, because you can sit down and you can have a long, drawn out conversation about all these topics. And me, myself, personally, I don't think I've ever been able to sit down and really lay out how I stack the deck and I become a Trump supporter. I think people get bits and pieces here, but if you're not seeing my whole picture, you kind of you don't fully understand why this guy is supporting who he's supporting.
Yeah.
So I know I
don't get it. I don't get it with you, man. I just don't get it. I think maybe I'm wrong, but I think you just like that he doesn't give a fuck. I think you just like that personality enough that you're like, all right, I'm all in. That's how I was with Bernie whenever he didn't take money from the corporations, because that to me, that's the big one, man. Like if I feel like there are bigger issues than money being in politics. However, if you fix that one, half those big issues go away. Just getting money out of, and that's something where liberals and conservatives can certainly find agreement on, but they don't let us vote for that, do they? Because that's where the power is, right? They don't care
I,
if we're
I
arguing
don't.
about trans bathrooms. They could give two shits. Let us fight all in the mud all we want. But as soon as something ever comes up about, uh, they will never put out a referendum about how much money lobbyists should be able to contribute. They'd never do it. They'd never, and I feel like that's a big one. So whenever Bernie was taking only small donations and wasn't having any super PACs in, I was like, I'm all in. It was the same thing where Trump says I could shoot somebody in the middle of Fifth Avenue and they'd still vote for me. That's how I was about Bernie to an extent, just because of that, because it was that important to me to get the money out of politics. This man says he's going to do it. He's got my support. And then it was kind of gross because when he then endorses Biden, all of a sudden you go, wait, all those people that couldn't afford to support you, but they did it anyway, just gave all their delegates to the guy that was taking the money. It's almost worse that you took money from the poor people, right? Because
He
now
doesn't
it's like, it's
understand.
creepy.
He don't understand what an endorsement is. It's not just, well, this is the lesser two evils. When you endorse somebody, you're not just endorsing that person. You're endorsing all the ideas. You're endorsing what they stand for, the policies they want to put in place. And here's the same people that you spent your whole life arguing against. You could have just said, you know what, I'm going to stay out of it. Because I refuse to support anybody who goes against what I stand for. So look.
Maybe they got to him too, man. Maybe they said, hey, you try to pull that shit like you pulled in 2016 and even look like you don't support the DNC candidate. Maybe we'll let the FBI go ahead and continue investigating your wife's academic shit. Remember, she got some investigation going on that went away all of a sudden. What's that about?
You know what I'm saying?
I don't know.
Just like with COVID-19, we ain't talking about Hong Kong and what China doing over there no more. See, so it's a lot of distractions, and I'm gonna put it like this. I don't think the debate is about who can beat Trump. I don't care about who can beat Trump. Trump is not the biggest issue we facing right now.
Mm-mm.
And a lot of people get hung up on that.
Last time you were on the Right to Reason, you said he is a symptom. He is not the illness. And I think you were spot on, man. I think you're spot on.
And that's what's important. And I think, I have moments where I lose faith in humanity. There are moments where I just feel like, you know what? The government gonna get so big, corporations gonna get so rich, AI, 5G, all these different things. One day we're gonna wake up and me, you, and the working class, we're irrelevant. We don't matter. We have nothing to offer. That's when we should really be afraid. And I see it coming. I see what China's doing. I see the big moves that's being made on the world stage, the globalism and cheap labor in China and stuff like that. I don't think people understand the biggest issues that's facing us right now because we're so busy fighting over bathrooms and, gay marriage and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where my mind is. I'm thinking long game, 20 years, 30 years from now, when robots can do all of our jobs. I'm thinking about what direction we headed in the long term. It's not about Trump. Trump will be gone, whether he's gone this time or the next 4 years. That doesn't really concern me at the end of the day. But I need to be revealing to the masses on what's really going on in our government and society. And I felt that Trump was the best person to highlight a lot of issues that you just will not highlight with the same status quo. I really don't think with the same status quo, people are going to be engaged.
Oh, that's what it was for you. You just wanted change.
I wanted awareness.
Mm.
And well, I mean, there are other things.
We got it with the media. Nobody believes shit from the media anymore. Except real far right people might believe Fox, or real far left people might believe anything on CNN. But for the most part, most of us folks that are kind of see a little bit is true on both sides, but there's a lot of lies in the media. That really did get highlighted big time.
The dominoes are falling, man. And look, Joe Biden can get elected and he can go in office. I guarantee you people are going to go back to being blind. It's like, okay, the threat is over. So let's just
Mm-hmm.
put back our blinders on and go back to normal life. It doesn't work that way. The media is lying to us. The government is lying to us. These people want power, greed, money. It's been going on. I think it's been going on since the 60s, the 50s, the 40s. We just couldn't see it. And now we can see it. And I'm asking people, what you going to do with this? And I'm really afraid that the average American citizen, they just don't see it coming. They just don't understand what all this means. And that's why I started my show. I want to bring awareness. I want to have conversations because there's some people that never think about these things. And it's up to us, man, whether we agree or disagree,
For
And I
sure.
know this show is supposed to be about.
I want to ask you though. I want to ask you before you hang up. Jesse Ventura, does he have your vote?
I saw you.
Come on.
Facebook.
Come on. Yeah, you have to. You have to. If you're talking about awareness,
you really think that's the way to go?
no, not at all. I think he's a kook. But I'm just saying that somebody that has the agenda that you do behind your vote, I would think, get yourself Jesse Ventura in there. He'll rattle some fucking cages for sure.
You know what a ticket I would sign up for any day? I would sign up for a Ben Shapiro and a Sam Harris ticket. I don't care if Sam Harris is the president and Ben Shapiro is the vice president, or either way, you switch it. I would sign up for that ticket.
Maybe Sam. I cannot see the appeal on Ben Shapiro.
I think people sleep on Ben Shapiro.
Man, I can do some Dave Rubin, even though I disagree with him on a lot of stuff, but I can see the appeal. He's a reasonable person. We just disagree, I can do Peterson when he stays in his lane and he's not talking about sociological shit, but he's talking about like psychology stuff. Yeah. The man's solid on that. He just whenever he starts talking about postmodernism, trans rights, the left, even though he's kind of on the left in a lot of ways, but that's when we disagree. So I mean, I can do a lot of this conservative media stuff, but Ben Shapiro, dude, he's just this annoying nasally voice. Like he talks, he does that thing. I hate this thing that so many of them do. Tim Pool does this too, and I like Tim Pool, but it annoys me because this is. A lot of people don't know this is a linguistic method to get confidence from the listener. Is you just do fast talk. If you slow that motherfucker down, whether it's Ben Shapiro or Tim, they're really not that smart. If they just spoke like the rest of us did, but they're it's like, dude, shut the fuck up.
I think Ben Shapiro must got me fooled because I think Ben Shapiro is intelligent, and I really do. Like. And look, I disagree with him about a lot of things, especially when it comes to religion. Like sometimes I'm listening to him.
Jewish or something?
Yeah, he's Jewish. And sometimes I'm listening to him and when he start bringing up God and stuff, I just be like, no. That's why I say Sam Harris. I think we need Sam Harris in there. Oh, I miss Christopher Hitchens so bad. I just wish I could get Christopher Hitchens' thoughts on so many things right now.
You know what Chris said that applies so well to Joe Biden right now? Is for all the progressives that really hate the DNC, but they hate Trump too, and they don't know what to do. Chris Hitchens said, the only thing that is sure from the only thing that is a sure thing when voting for the lesser of two evils is that you will get a more evil choice next time. And I thought, man, that's crazy because that's what happened. That's exactly what happened. Whenever we did that with Obama, then you get Hillary. Now you're getting Biden. Some might argue, well, Biden's not as bad as Hillary. He wasn't, and then you found out he was a rapist, and now Me Too doesn't matter. What are you really giving up? What are you guys giving up? Believe all women except Tara Reid? You will give up everything to fight this orange evil. And
look, I don't agree with the criteria that a lot of people put in place, but like, I think if Joe Biden is guilty, and I think there's evidence to back it up, I think he should be investigated and he should be charged. And I think the same thing with Trump. If Trump is accused, there should be an investigation, and we should look into it. If there's evidence and he's guilty, he should be charged. I don't think this idea of as soon as you're accused of something, you should be instantly outcast. And I think my problem is not that the criteria. My problem is you treated Kavanaugh with a different standard than you're treating Joe Biden. And that's what my problem is.
And the evidence is better with Tara Reid than it was with Dr. What was the
I just had her name in my head.
Too.
Yeah. Ford, is it?
Yeah, Ford. Yeah. Tara's got better evidence. She's got
multiple people.
I think 4 now. It's up to 4. And one of them's her mom who called Larry King. And then when you go to Google, you see that episode's missing.
And she said
they're all in on it.
She said she filed a complaint and she's trying to get them to release certain information that Joe Biden don't want released. So, look, this conversation was supposed to be about why atheists tend to lean liberal. We done got all over the place.
Well, I think that's because you actually are a bit conservative, and I actually am a bit liberal. But these motherfucking Republican and Democrat bullshit that they don't apply to us because we're not falling for the tribalism thing, just like we didn't fall for it with God. We're not falling for it with politics. And at the end of the day, maybe you lean more toward we've been living in this cave a long time. I think we should stay in the cave. And I say I think we should go outside and find a better cave. Who's right in the end? I don't know. But I mean that's the difference. And the only way that community, those cave people, could survive is if they were able to talk it out, right? Because otherwise, you let me run it, I'm going to keep running us out there right into danger every goddamn day. I can't have all the power. We let you run it, we're going to run out of food. Or maybe that cave right over there, it's right there, man. We could just go stay in that one. But we're going to stay in this one until we get diseases and starve if we let you have all the choices. Talking it out. Democracy. Having some kind of equal freedom of speech. It seems to work.
That's why I really strongly believe in state rights. And I think state rights it gives us the opportunity for people to try certain things locally. And then you expand on that and it goes outward nationally. Yeah. I don't think I know
it was a good idea.
I know some things can't be done just from a local level. But for those things that can be tried, we need to run an experiment. And we're all about science and running experiments and seeing what's the outcome. And if it's repeatable, then we should be able to try small state experiments, see if it works for them, and let's expand and let's see how it goes. I just don't think that we should just, let's rush and do it. Sounds like a good idea. And we got to also make sure we're not making decisions purely based on emotions. Because sometimes we get this emotional feeling that this is wrong, but your solution may not be the right solution to fix it.
We're kind of getting that chance with this corona thing. Certain states opening up and earlier than others. We might be able to see the experiment play out a little. The only problem is, as long as there's interstate travel, which is intrinsically an American thing, you don't have to show your papers to go from state to state. That was one of the founding points. And as long as that happens, your experiment might kind of fuck up, at least for getting answers, because it's like farting on a train. It doesn't stay in your seat. The guy next to you is smelling it, and the guy 3 seats back is smelling it. And so whenever Kemp opens up Georgia, Florida's going to feel it too, whether they're open or not. And whenever Abbott here in Texas opens up, he opened up Friday, yesterday.
I'm still doing my thing. I'm social distancing. I look.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of people think, conservatives just want to run out and Trump supporters want to run out. I'm not one of them. I'm keeping my distance now. I get that some people going out of business and suffering. And I think we should try to do the best we can to ease our way back into this. But also, it's up to each individual to protect themselves and figure out, should I go out? Should I do things that I shouldn't be doing? Should I, I think it's a balance to act, like I say, with all things. But I got to wrap this up. I was only supposed to keep you 30 minutes. But here we are.
No,
past the
it's
hour.
great talking to you, man. I always like talking to you.
Yeah, me too. I enjoy talking to you as well. So they came, they heard a lot. They saw. Now run, tell them we said it. And if they ask for us by name, make sure you say it twice. This is the Javier Javier Show.